All right, we're gonna get into your swim analysis here. Here are your first few laps in the pool. We're gonna talk about 3 different things today. The first one's gonna be head position, second's gonna be a hip-driven stroke, and the third one is gonna be simply gliding and front-end efficiency. So to start, we're gonna go over head position. What we're gonna talk about is setting your head in the correct position, and that will help balance out your whole body in the water by keeping a neutral head and neck angle. It'll enable us to do so many different things and make so many other different corrections. So from this front position, I want you to look at how deep your head is. And right now you can see that, like, when we're out of the water, we can't even see your head at all. When we're in the water, we can see you diving your head way down. And I can tell you're doing this to get your hips up and try to get your legs towards the surface of the water. It's a very common overcompensation, if you will. But ideally, we want our head to be neutral. We want the crown of your head to be right on the surface of the water. And as you can see, when you take a breath, you actually have to lift your head way up. And here's what it looks like from the side angle. You can see your head is so deep, it's probably creating a lot of excess drag when it's down there. And then you lift your head way up when we want to take a breath, and it kind of leads to a lot of funkiness in your stroke. So we're gonna go over how we can help that. And the other thing I want to note about the head position is it's very likely that this is causing your legs to steer outward. Like what you were mentioning, this is one of the bigger issues that you're having, is your kick goes all over the place. And when you lift your head way up, everything gets unbalanced very quickly, and you can see your leg kicking way out to the side. So by correcting your head position, I have a feeling this is going to correct a lot of stability in the rest of your body and will enable you to swim in a nice straight line. So here's a video of Jenna swimming freestyle, and you can see that her head, the crown of her head, is pointing forward, and her eyes are facing straight down at the bottom of the pool. Her head is not digging way down any deeper than it should. It's just remaining neutral right on the surface of the water. This is her swimming with a snorkel, which I highly recommend, and I'll send you the details on how you can get one like this. But again, we want the crown of your head right on the surface of the water, not any higher, not any lower. So the first drill we're gonna use to help correct this is just pushing off the wall and floating. When we push off the wall, we want to hold a tight Superman position for 5 seconds and then swim to the other side. And that's it. And we're just gonna repeat this process, maybe for about 5 minutes, just until you get the hang of what this feels like. Apologies for this video. I'm not sure why YouTube doesn't have a non-foreign version of this, but as you can see, it's a good demonstration of what this drill should look like. You push off, you float with your hands right out in Superman, keeping your legs toward the surface. You will start to feel your legs sink. Try to use your core to bring them up and not diving your head deep down. The second drill is alignment kicking. So we're going to use an alignment kickboard here. I don't expect you to have one of these already, but I will send you the details on what this kickboard is. And the focus here is to keep your head still and your kicks tight. And this is what the kickboard looks like. It's a little funky, but the demonstration here is good. You basically just stack your hands one on top of the other through the little strap, holding your hands out front, and you just kick. This is a lot easier with a snorkel, a lot easier with fins. I recommend fins for every drill. If it makes the drill easier, use fins. But really, you just kick with your arms out in front. And the second lesson we're going to go over here is gaining more power from your hips rather than your shoulders. So a hip-driven stroke is more powerful and more efficient than a shoulder-driven stroke. And what we want to focus on here is turning your hips before you start your pull to activate the larger muscle groups. And we'll show you what this means. But here you are swimming, and I just want you to pay attention to what your hips are doing. As you can see, Your stroke is led by your shoulders, by your arms. Your arms start pulling, and then your hips kind of follow, and your hips are doing what your arms are doing. We want that to be the other way around. This is a video of me swimming, and as you can see, I want you again to pay attention to the synchronization between the hips and the arms. The hips start moving right there, and then the pull follows. I'm going to pause here. You can see the activation of the lats, the obliques. All of this is driven by turning your hips before you start your pull. So this is what we're going to focus on, getting your hips over, getting your hips turned before you start your pull. And we're going to go back to your side view again. And again, I just want you to pay attention to what your hips are doing in synchronization with your arms. And I'm pausing here because this is about when you start to turn your hips. This is about when you start to get your hips activated, and your arm is already almost done pulling, which means you're losing a lot of power. You're losing all the power that you could be gaining from your hips, and really it's just a shoulder-driven stroke. I wanted to show you this picture because it shows how vertical in the water Jenna's hips are compared to her head. So she's really stacking perpendicular. The first drill we're going to use is side kicking. So we're just going to kick with one arm out in front and one arm by your side. And we're going to focus on maintaining a long, tight body position and getting our hips as perpendicular as possible while looking straight down at the pool. If it's easier to use an alignment kickboard on one hand, please do that. Again, use fins if it makes it easier to hold a better body position. And it's pretty simple. You just have one arm out in front and one arm at your side. You're looking straight down at the bottom of the pool and you're just kicking. And maybe when you reach halfway, you can change arms. You can just take one stroke and put the other arm out in front, or you can do that at the end of each lap. But again, we are just focusing on getting that feeling of stacking your hips one on top of the other. And this will set up the timing that we're going to talk about in drill 2. And this drill is one arm freestyle. And the important thing here is the arm that's not pulling should be tucked by your side. So the focus here is to start turning your hips before you start the pull. We're only thinking about timing here. That's why one arm is going to be at your side. Again, please use fins. It's going to make this a lot easier. But here's what it looks like. You're just doing one arm freestyle, and the other arm is just floating right by your side. And this is actually a pretty good video. This swimmer, you can see they're getting their hips and their body turned before their pull. And this is the case, really, if you look at any sport. If you look at baseball, a pitcher starts to turn their hips before they release the ball. In soccer, the players are turning their hips and their body, and their leg is simply following. But all of this power comes from your hip and your core and your back, and rarely does it come from the actual limb. So we're focusing on using the power of your entire body in your stroke. And the third lesson here is simply gliding. And I put this last because we really shouldn't think about this until we can correct your body position and we can correct the timing of your hips to get a little more power. And here's what you look like swimming right now. And I just want you to pay attention to the constant turnover of your arms. There's really no pause out in front, but if you were to pause, this is exactly where it should be. You should be extending your arms out in front and just holding that position just a little bit longer. And right now, you're just going one arm right after the other, leaving no room to, have a little extra efficiency in your stroke. And the efficiency is simply gliding. And this is what I mean by that. This is Jenna swimming again. And as you can see, every stroke has just a minor pause out in front. She just holds her arm and her hand for just a brief moment. And that allows her to just get a little bit extra distance on each stroke. This is me swimming, and it's the same deal. You can just see my arm just pauses out in front just ever so slightly, and it helps us just get a little bit more distance without doing anything extra. It's easy speed. It's free speed. And the first drill we're going to use here is catch-up stroke, which I'm sure you've done a lot. I just want you to pay attention to keeping your arms at 11 and 1 o'clock. They shouldn't touch out in front. A lot of swimmers do catch-up stroke and feel the need to touch their fingers. We don't want to do that. And this will force you to pause and to hold that arm out in front just a little longer than you actually should. And apologies, this swimmer is touching their hands out in front. Again, I just want there to be a little bit of separation so your hands remain in front of your shoulders and not your head. But again, the focus of this drill for you is to just learn what it feels like to pause with your hand out in front and to take a full stroke with your hand out in front. And when we start doing freestyle and other drills, you'll know what this feels like, and it'll become easier and easier. And the second drill is 3 strokes and glide. And it's pretty simple. It's exactly what it sounds like. You're going to take 3 regular strokes, and on the third one, you're going to stop and glide with that arm out in front and one arm by your side. And this is really to just feel how much speed you're leaving on the table. Like, you can gather a lot of speed just by using the momentum of your strokes, and if you stop and glide in a good position, you will feel yourself continue to move forward in the water. And this is what it looks like. It's pretty simple. You know, you through your 3 regular freestyle strokes and you just glide. And again, we're just working on distance per stroke. It's not exactly extra speed, it's just an extra little bit of distance you can get on each stroke. And something you can do to track this, it's kind of a bonus quote-unquote drill, is to simply just count your strokes a lot. I do this during warm-up. You could do a series of 25s and get your stroke count on the first one and just try to bring that down with each succeeding lap. Or midway through a workout, you can count your strokes just to see how close you are to your original number. It's a good way to track if you're getting tired, and it's a good thing to do to focus on your distance per stroke and stroke count as you're getting tired. So to summarize, we talked about the 3 things: head position, hip power, and glide. Head position, we just want to think about getting that into a perfect line with the rest of your body. It will enable everything else we've been talking about, so I highly recommend focusing on this stuff first. The second thing was hip power. You know, again, we want to move from a shoulder-driven stroke into a hip-driven stroke, and by doing so, we're going to be able to activate larger muscle groups and just get more power in your freestyle. And then the third topic we went over is just gliding. And again, once you've nailed the first 2, if you just stop and pause a little bit at the front end of each stroke, you're going to get a little bit more distance and you're going to become a little bit more efficient. So those are the 3 things that we're going to be talking about. Feel free to reach out with any questions, talk to your coaches about this stuff, ask your coaches if you're doing it correctly, and we'll keep improving.